Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So in this video we are going to take a close look at the gigantic brick called the Xbox Classic. I must say, I read that a lot of people did not got this thing back in the day or just skipped it because they were not interested. But you know, the Xbox Classic is a quite interesting piece of technology, and nowadays how is it collecting for it? Beside the prices, so far I know, as I'm making these videos, everything is dirty cheap and you can find some quite interesting additions. That's what we're going to talk about, but also there are some caveats, like some serious problems, better said, that you need to know before you're going to get into this rabbit hole. But you can also do a lot of awesome things with this machine, so stay tuned. But before we're going to talk about the Xbox itself, let's talk about the way you can connect it. Yup, there are many different ways, and that includes old school SCART cables, but also component, and nowadays we're going to get even some cheap HDMI solutions. So the first one, what we're going to get is the composite one. It's just great if you're having a CRT, but I prefer to have full RGB. But in the end, if you have nothing else, it's great, but this cable is rubbish. Okay, so then I'm going to get the cheap component cables from AliExpress. They are not the best. Some of them are just going to be broken when you're going to get them in. But if you find one, these things are pretty damn awesome compared with an LCD TV. And of course, then we're going to get the options like the HDMI solutions. This one is from Hyperkin. But when you're going to look it up on AliExpress, you can find so many different versions. For example, we're going to get a Kaiko edition. We're going to get ourselves another one from Bitfunks. There are so many brands, and in the end, in my opinion, you're going to get almost the same, or you're just going to get the same. But how good is it, and what are we going to get inside the box? So let's go to this version, the pound version. Yep, we're having so many different versions, but the pound just comes with this dongle and an HDMI cable. You plug it in and that's it. If you have some problems, you can maybe use the micro USB cable. Some of them do need some extra power. But what you're going to see here is an amazing picture quality. Nowadays you're even going to get an HDMI solution for in the Xbox itself. But again, those things are expensive. You need to do a lot of soldering, and that's what I love about these cables. It's just plug and play and ready to go. Okay, so if you have missed out the Xbox Classic has some amazing games. And in my opinion, it looks even better than on the PlayStation 2. So I think the Xbox was just the best console you could get when it comes to the graphical aspect. And has some exclusive games, but there's only one downside. I'm not talking about the scratches. I did notice that some of my discs did die in the past. Seriously, there was non-scratch at all, and they didn't boot up. So if this is going to be an issue in the future, that is something we shall see. But that they're turning out to be a little bit brown, that is not okay. Oh yeah. No. I found my buttons. And yes, I'm playing with the Duke controller. I love the Duke controller. And back at the day, this was one of my favorite racing games, Forza Motorsports. This intro looks so nice. This looks so beautiful. Still in 2019, I love the Xbox Classic. Okay, so I already mentioned something in my gameplay, the Duke controller. What kind of ways you can play. So the Duke controller, I can still remember when holding it in my hands. I had got quite a good big hands. So for me, it's not a problem. So I love this controller. I found it so super comfortable. I was in love with it. I only got one of them back in the day. I also got the other model, and that one was called the S. The S model is one controller I found more often than the Duke nowadays, but this thing is of course for most people way comfortable than the Duke, because the Duke is absolutely clunky. But I also did a video a very long time ago about controllers and versions, and oh yeah, I found a lot of them. Look at this, I found all kinds of versions, including the wireless Logitech. Those things are freaking expensive and rare to find. But you have also so many weird form factors, and some controllers are just even playing better than the original ones. I think I found like one from Big Ben that was the silver one in the middle, and that one plays so much better. So when it comes to aftermarket control for Xbox, they went completely nuts, and I did not find all of them, but I found a lot of them. Alright, so let's begin with the custom versions. This custom version is quite interesting. So first of all, I picked this up. This was one of my first Xboxes I bought after years of not collecting. So I have this thing, maybe, let's say a decade or something like that in my collection. Okay, so this thing has like this LED under the logo. It's quite interesting. I'm guessing, but I don't know for sure, you could like buy these case mods, like a complete kit, and you can just slap it on there. Because I couldn't find any more information, and of course it comes with a decal kit. So basically that is what it is, a case and some stickers. But this thing looks amazing. The only downside is there's a tiny crack in my logo at the top. Something, yeah, that is inevitable, simply because when you're looking at the Xbox itself, it's an acrylic, and if you're going to put accidentally something on top, you're going to crack it. But still, after those years I'm having this machine, it has some, let's say, minor scratches, but when you're looking at the sticker, it looks perfect. Like, this sticker is high quality. I really love this silver glossy effect of it. But with daylight, the LEDs don't have like a great function, especially when it's dark. But here you can see the crack in the middle. Oh man, it's such a bummer, and I cannot find any replacement. Okay, another thing they changed out, no idea why, like they switched the on and off button and the open button. Such a weird thing. So when you're pressing the open button, it doesn't open up because it just powered on the system. That is such a weird thing, and to be honest, I have no idea why you should do something like that. It's quite confusing, I can tell you that. Alright, so let's take a close look in the inside. So how this thing looks and how does this cover looks. And I must say, like, these things are super easy to open up. Okay, so you're just going to lift up the top case. You need to be very careful with this version because the LED has been connected with the Molex connector over there. Alright, so this is going to be a challenge, like removing the case, unplugging this freaking thing. Yep, give me some room please. Thank you. Yeah, let's move this thing forward. And let's remove the freaking LED. So they went hot glue crazy. That's just a fact. And to be honest, it's not looking great. Like, from the outside okay, but this hot glue madness, absolutely horrible. I don't understand why they freaking did it like that. Like, there is always a different solution. Or use like less freaking hot glue. But okay. That's my opinion. Okay, so what are we going to get in the inside? At the left, we're going to get ourselves the DVD drive. We're going to get different brands. This is the Philips, in my opinion, one of the best ones. That even reach like, say, discs that are like quite scratched up, and the drawer that comes out of it doesn't get stuck. Because with some of those versions of the DVD drive, especially the later ones from China, those are like freaking awful. You need to replace the drive bells, you need to lubricate everything, and like, it's a freaking nightmare. And the Philips are absolutely great. Okay, at the right side here they're using a 3.5 inch hard drive. The original one was around 4 GB. This is a 750 GB, but I also seen the 500 GB in my machines. Okay, you're also going to get a different option with a converter cable or a converter kit like this. That you can just use it with a SATA drive. That is of course more convenient, but it is quite confusing how everything works. So I'll explain you later on in the video, because I also have one with a SATA drive installed, even like a freaking 2 TB. And I know like there are people who are even slapping an SSD inside of this. So it's absolutely crazy if you think about it. Okay, so there are different mainboard versions out there. This is version number 2 if I'm saying it correctly. This thing also has been mod chipped. And here you can see like the wires go over the mainboard. And this was like how I got it back in the day. I think it comes with an Evo X BIOS. But in the end, like when you're looking at the way how they made it, they did an amazing job. Okay guys, so let's take a close look at another custom version. This one I bought from the UK. There was a guy who basically made this special light up feature, and in combination with just this special, like I think sort of wrap that he puts around it. It's not great like the sticker I've shown you before. Okay, so when you're looking at the device itself, I think he did an amazing job, and it looks pretty damn cool with the blue. He also sold it in different colors. I can still remember that he had like a red and a green, and also the red and the green had like their own colors when it comes to LEDs. But yeah, the Xbox, this is also a great version. And let's do a quick teardown. And I also wanted to show you what you can do with this machine. Because this machine beast, it's just like really special. It did some minor modifications. So this Xbox comes with the original case, and he basically removed, I think there was a green sticker behind the Xbox logo. So that makes this thing look very good. It's more like this translucent color now, but with some LED behind it, it's going to look quite fancy. It's not too bright, it just looks amazing. So at the front we're going to get an LED strip that he basically slapped inside the case itself, and going to give you like this light up port effect in combination with the bottom. So I think like the effect what you're going to get is cool, but if you don't have any controller attached to it, you look straight into the LED strip, and I personally don't like it. Alright, so let's open it up and let's see what we're going to get with this version. So this version also comes with the Philips drive and an old school 3.5 inch hard drive. I think it's a 500 gigabyte, or nope. This one is also on 750 gigabyte. So let's remove all of the parts. Okay, also this one comes with the same mainboard revision number 2. And so as I can see, this mainboard hasn't been modified with a mod chip. And I'm guessing this thing will run totally on soft mod. The capacitor has been removed. Here you can see it, and the reason why they do this, simply because this one is going to be leaking, and when they're leaking it's going to be damaging the mainboard up to the point that your mainboard is going to be like dead in the water. So that's going to be like a little bit of a bummer if you have this, and that's always like the problem with these Microsoft Xboxes. You need to open it up, especially you're going to have like one that is around 2001 up to 2004. But then, like, don't even start about the power supplies. Here we're also going to get the first generation that issues. So these things cannot, by the way, be swapped out, because we're going to get a lot of different versions when it comes to the power supply itself. Then I'm having this weird painted, I call it the Terminator edition. Not going to do an in-depth video about it, simply because there is nothing special to talk about. Nope, it's like a painted version. It comes with the same specs. This thing does have soft mod. It comes with a bigger hard drive and Philips drive, so nothing really fancy. But let's talk about this crystal, because this crystal is basically like the biggest and the baddest one I'm having in the collection. So what do I mean with the biggest and the baddest? Not because it's in crystal or in translucent edition, no, because this thing has some internal awesome software and specs. Okay, first of all, this thing comes also in different colors. Like you also have like the green edition, and when you're looking even further, you're going to get a find in the blue, and there are even some super rare out there that has translucent. I think it was orange, but I think there are like a couple of them on the freaking planet. But let's talk about this version, because this new crystal version is pretty damn badass. So back in the day, and even now, there are still a lot of developments with this retro classic system, because we can do so many cool things with it. When opening up, you can see we're having a lot of new things that wasn't like with the original one, and that's true, because this one has been modified with a SATA 2TB Western Digital Black Edition, and the yellow cable that is basically like the EDA 132 ribbon cable, because we need it in combination with the new SATA hard disk and the converter. But the reason I just wanted to show you this, because we can do so many awesome things. We can even slap an SSD in it, and there are people like slimming this thing down. There are so awesome things. And what I also like about this is that it doesn't give you like a gigantic speed boost, but it's a little bit faster like the original 6-7 gigabyte that was inside. Also, this comes with a Philips drive, in my opinion the best drive, so even if you're like more like having some damaged disk, this thing freaking still reads it. So combination with the 2TB, it's just a monster machine. And also, the Philips drive opens up very fast. Okay, yeah, open it up. Yep, thank you. So let's play some games, and let's do some awesome things with this crazy classic machine. So let's remove the hard drive and the disk drive. And the reason why, because I want to give you a quick look in the inside. So there are some pros and cons with the Xbox Classic. One of the biggest cons is that they have some leaking capacitors, and that is a big issue with these things. Like the latest models around 2005 didn't have these issues, because they replaced a lot of them with like gold capacitors. So that was a big of this. So take in consideration, if you buy one, you buy more like a latest editions, you don't have a lot of these issues. But in the end, what you can see, it's just really nice, it's really cleaned up, and this is just how it needs to be looking in the inside. It also comes with the new Xenium mod chip. It's more like the latest edition. Still now in 2020, 2021, they're releasing like new firmwares and new kind of ways you can mod the system. So this is a very nice chip. I know that when you're buying an old one, it comes with a Paladin chip or some other crappy ones. But what I understand of this is just a really great chip, and it's very stable, and it doesn't give you any problems in the future. Okay, so Both of the system cooling elements have been removed and the cooling paste have been changed out. Take also in consideration when you're having like the older ones, it has some issues like heating up simply because the cooling paste is old. Sometimes you're having like this really noisy, horrible fans. Like that is like with these pros and cons of these Xbox Classic, there are so many things that can go wrong and are freaking horrible. But the power supply is another thing. Take consideration when you have like the first edition, they have like the issues with the connectors where you're plugging in the cable for the power supply. And yeah, there's another thing, there are like maybe 4 or 5 different power supplies. So you cannot, let's say, get a new one and swap them out with a new edition. So take consideration with the 2001, 2003, so around this time era, the connections can be getting really bad. Also, this classic Xbox has that's kind of weird how I say it, but like classic Xbox has like the LED port mod, so we're having like these tiny LEDs in front of the ports. It's just cool, like a tiny gimmick. But okay, let's boot it up and show you a quick overview, because we can do a lot of amazing things with this. So to begin with the XBMC layout, because it looks pretty damn cool. Another big plus is when you're having like an Evo X BIOS, you don't need to lock your hard drives. More like for the people who are familiar with this, you need to lock your hard drive at the main board. You don't need to do this when you're having a mod chip. And even if your hard drive is going to crash, you can basically say, hey, I just slapped a new hard disk in it, and you can revive your Xbox. Because when your hard drive fails with an original one, it's over, and you can just throw it away. And that is like a really convenient thing when you're having like a mod chip in it. And overall, you can see like the XBMC has a lot of great like layouts, but this is one of my favorite ones. So let's boot it up and let's take a close look at all the features this thing has. Like we're having like this very nice layout. We can do a lot of great things. We can just choose a different game. You can load up your games. Let's get back to the software itself. So when you're soft modding your Xbox Classic, you can do a lot of great things with it. So we have in games, homebrew, emulators, applications. But I want to point out to the emulation, what is it capable of if you're going to buy this thing for 25 bucks, and what can you even do with it, and how good is the emulation compared with other devices nowadays. So first of all, you can give this thing even a custom made Xbox, more like lookalike one model intro, quite interesting. The other thing that I like about it is layout itself, that is called XBMC, and with XBMC we can do a lot of great things, which you can see over here. We're having like shortcuts to the emulators or the emulator folder. And if you're going to put a very big hard disk inside this machine, and the fun fact is this thing already comes with a 7 GB, but of course if you want to store all of your games, it is possible, but you need a bigger one, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. So when you're going to take a close look at the emulation part, here's where you're going to get a lot of interesting things, but also especially the way how they present. So here we're having like different emulators are having this really basic but also good looking menu. The emulation support of this old Xbox is just gigantic, and a lot of stuff you're seeing here like Atari, ColecoVision, Amiga, you can play it with a Pandora's box, for example. And with this old Xbox you can play it all. So beside the ways you can play, you're also having different layouts. We also have operating systems like coin-ops and other great ways to play. When you're looking at the interface packs, we're having coin-ops, coin-ops Ninja, Hypervision. There are so many ways you can play, but let's take a close look at one of my favorite ones that I really like even now in 2021. Personally, I like it when we're having this very nice fancy stuff. This is more like the Hyperspin for the Xbox, and I must say, for an older system, basically this thing is more like a Pentium 3 combination with an Nvidia chipset, and it still handles the menu very nicely. And if you like more like a couple of games and you just want to have a very nice interface, and you like these Hyperspin stuff, this is a great way to display your games and just play them this way. I like this interface, but let's go to more like the basic version called the coin-ops. So the layout of the coin-ops is quite basic, but it works like a charm. You have this tiny preview picture, or video in this case, and you can see even with some arcade games the banner will change out, or the marquee. I think it's pretty cool, a lot of great details. It will even run for an old system like MAME, We can play a lot of different handhelds. You can add, let's say, Sega games, SNES, a lot of stuff that cannot even be run on a Pandora's box. Nevertheless, even for an old system, when it comes to the different ways you can play, it has a lot of potential. But the question remains, what can we play and what will run decent enough to enjoy on this old system? I just want to give you a quick overview of this game, simply because the old stuff like Amiga, Commodore 64, 8-bit, 16-bit stuff, and a lot of different handhelds will run just fine. That's more like the low-end stuff. You can run it on your phone, you can run it on a freaking potato. Nevertheless, this is not the case, and if you want to play these games with an Xbox, you can do them just fine, like a lot of cheap handhelds from China nowadays. So let's boot up the MAME. The MAME, I must say that I was surprised seeing a lot of games running pretty decent. And what I like about this MAME stuff is that if you want to just play some arcade games, sometimes just boot it up on the console. I think an Xbox Classic is a pretty cool way to go to, and it's just amazing that this all runs on an old school 2001 gaming machine. So on this old console, N64 is a mixed bag, like always, on these more like older and cheaper devices I've reviewed. But the performance, in my opinion, are not that super bad. But a lot of games are glitching out and having some slowdowns. Sadly, and it will not be any better in the future. So I personally find it very fascinating that this old Xbox Classic has the possibility to run Killer Instinct. A lot of stuff like a Raspberry Pi 4 can do it, or you need to overclock it, and a lot of these Android boxes, or whatever what kind of things I've reviewed here on the channel, doesn't even have the option of coming close running this game. Kind of funny, if an Xbox from 2001 can. But I'm not an expert of Collecting 2, but I just noticed some big slowdowns, which you can see here. So this is not normal. I've played this thing on the Super Console PC and run very fine. But yeah, okay, let's be honest, this is more like an Xbox from 2001, 25 bucks, or a Super Console PC for around 500 bucks. If you didn't see it, don't forget to check out that review, but it was still, for the money, it's a quite interesting device. And when you're trying out PlayStation 1, it depends maybe what kind of emulator you will run it, but you can see that the Xbox itself struggles getting it on the good FPS in combination with the way how the music plays. It's more like a mixed bag, and this is more like the limitation, but still fun to see some of these games are decent enough to play. But there's one thing I just need to mention, and that is the Excuter 3 model. And I reviewed it a very long time ago, and this is just, I think, the ultimate Xbox machine when it comes to modifications. It even comes with a freaking display. It's old school technology, but it's kind of cool, and it's like a cool novelty if you ask me. But again, like this thing has the same internals, but let's do a quick chit chat about this model. Take a close look at the Excuter 3, the ultimate modified Xbox Classic edition that you can buy. So in this video I also want to check out for what are the capabilities and what is so special about it. As you already can see that when you're looking at the normal edition, they did some additional adding buttons, they have some awesome features, and it would surprise you what you can still do with the Xbox Classic in 2021. Okay, so let's talk about the extra buttons what you can find and also what you can do with it. So what I understand of, we're having on the left side the protection button. The protection button is a button that you can press, not something with protection from the internet or evil hackers for your Xbox. No, this is only to do that you, so far I know, you can't do a refresh of the BIOSes, because we're having different buttons. And what makes this thing extra special, that we're having the way to have multiple BIOSes on the same single system. So that's something quite unique, because normally, so far I know, in mod chip can only support one BIOS at a time, in combination with some nice LEDs, and we having a receiver for the remote itself. That was not with the normal version. But another great feature of this device was of course the LCD display. And what I like about LCD display, when you're powering on the device itself, you will get within a couple of seconds an active display with just the basic text about the modification. But when the system has been booted up, you can already see some information. When it's booting up in combination with the XBMC, I did notice you're going to get all of the information of the video that you're watching, or if you want to listen to some music, you will display the title and nevertheless the song. And it's a pretty cool extra feature. In 2021 it is not that, let's say, special, but back in the day that was a big deal, and I can completely understand when people wanted to have this. I think it's a great addition to a system like this. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think of the extra display and all of these features? Okay, so let's do a quick teardown and we'll show you what's inside this Me machine. So this device has been packed up with a Western Digital EDA drive, still an original EDA drive. Nowadays we can upgrade it with a SATA converter to EDA and having bigger disk inside this machine. So at the right side we're having basically the hard drive, and the left side we're having the DVD drive. This is the Samsung version. There are quite some different versions out there. We're having the Philips drive and Samsung. They are one of my favorite versions, simply because the disk drives are very fast and they have no problem reading damaged disk or with some wear on it. But when you take a close look at the bottom plate, here we can find a lot of new developments. Compared with the original Xbox, or better said, a normal modded Xbox, the Excuter chip is quite interesting, because of course this chip also controls the display. So this is basically what we can say that was back in the day the next level of modding, in combination not only with the LCD, the mod chip was very extended, and I think it's quite interesting. So let's do an overview of the main board, what is so different about it besides the mod chip. And I just want to give you a quick look and overview, how does it look, or how does an Xbox Classic look from the inside. So here we can find the EDA connection that is needed for the DVD drive and for the hard drive. Yeah, it's really old school EDA drive, we don't even know it nowadays. The mod chip is over here. This thing is quite big in my opinion. Normally we're having these very tiny Paladin chips in most of these old Xboxes. The cable goes all the way to the front over there. And I can tell you, when you lift out the main board, you will see some extra soldering points, because that was a very big project to get this thing to work. Okay, so what I also wanted to point out, with these old Xboxes, some of them, the really old versions like 2001 up to 2003, if I'm recalling it correctly, we're having some modifications needed, and especially with the condensators that are having some issues. The power supplies, we have some different versions over there. Here we're having the GPU and the CPU. It's always recommended to change out the cooling paste, because when it's dried up it will give less conduction, so the main board will get hotter in combination with the CPU GPU. This one has more like the older version of the fan. These things pushed out a lot of air, but they were freaking loud. So yeah guys, so prehistoric technology inside. There is not a lot of stuff to talk about anymore, but I just wanted to give you a quick look inside, especially with the chip, the cabling, and I think it's quite interesting to see something like this, but this is something not a lot of people will show. But beside the collectible value, why should you even pick up an Xbox Classic in 2021? I still think this thing is an amazing gaming machine in many different ways. Not only can play Xbox games, but also having the option to play some old school retro arcade games. Games that even run on a Raspberry Pi 3 or 4 nowadays when I'm making this video, but it can run on an old Xbox. So we're having a lot of different interfaces like Hyper Spin, we're having also coin ops, and a lot of great ways you can play basically these old school games and bring them together. Another great feature is of course the XBMC that I already shown you with the Excuter 3. In combination with this you can do so many great things. Combine this with an HDMI cable, you can even hook it up with your HD television and I can say it looks fantastic. Okay, so you want to play some old school games. I find it very fascinating that an old school 2001 game system can run the old school Mortal Kombat 1 that a lot of Chinese handhelds have problem with. Another great thing, there is still a lot of development with this Xbox, and if you want to combine this with your retro games from the Xbox collection, you can see we can play so many cool games. It looks, by the way, all nice, with a good menu, with some artwork on the back. In the end, I think when you're putting everything together, this is just one mean gaming retro machine. I think for a collector's perspective, the Xbox Classic with the Excuter 3 and all the awesome mods, I think it's just a great way. But you also can get yourself just a crystal version. Those things are pretty expensive nowadays, but they are way cheaper than the version, the modified Executor that I'm showing you here in this video. We're having the green version that I already mentioned before. This thing is the same, just a crazy expensive machine, but I really fancy this casing, this crystal in combination with the green. Alright guys, so that concludes this video. Like, it's absolutely jungle when it comes to the Xbox Classic. There are a lot of, let's say, caveats that you need to take consideration with mainboard revisions, then also like having the bad capacitors, different models, so also means different DVD drive, and a lot of DVD drives are basically stuck or just broken. As I'm making the video, a lot of these, let's say, basic Xbox systems are very cheap. But if you're going to get into the rabbit hole and finding like a unique one with HDMI, modded SSD inside, you name it, like make it crazy, go wild, but these will going to be expensive. And again, like this thing has so many problems. In the future, it's going to be quite a chance to find one that will be still alive. Let me know in the comments what do you think of the Xbox Classic. I want to thank you for watching. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell, become a wicked family, and I will see you in the next video.